Frontier by Maggot Moshpit. Chapter 1.
This is the ship you bought?
Leph Quill and his first mate, Surlia Wesker, stood on the hot concrete of the space dock in Citrus Creek. Before them was a ship.
Look, Surlia, this is the biggest I could afford. Besides, it can do L to the fourth, and it has space for all the colonists, their livestock, and cargo.
Leph was the kind of man to take risks. He was a wolverine, average height and skinny, with white streaks at random places in his brown fur. He lived in the age of the Great Planetary Rush, where fast scout ships discovered planets ripe for colonization, and ambitious men and women would ferry colonists across vast distances in exchange for large sums of money. Surlia looked at him angrily.
L to the fourth? That would take us 6 months to get there.
Leph grinned.
You wanted to tag along. Don't worry, we have enough food.
Surlia checked her watch.
When are the colonists supposed to arrive?
Leph took a few steps towards the ship.
Won't board for another day yet.
Surlia was not the kind of woman to take risks. She was, however, desperate. A pure white Arctic fox who was down on her luck and penniless, her only working experience being on a cargo ship. She jumped on the opportunity to serve aboard her friend Leph's ship when he offered her the position first.
I guess she'll do. You hire an engineer yet?
Yep.
Who?
You're not going to like it.
Who, damn it?
Zack Wild.
Surlia stomped her foot.
You hired Zack to be the engineer on your ship? Are you mad? Last time he got in a ship, he blew my apartment in half.
Leph stifled a laugh.
You sure it's not just because he's a human?
I'm not a racist.
His past exploits aside, he's the best engineer on this rock we can afford. Maybe if we were over there...
He pointed to the sky where the planet Atria loomed.
We could find someone better.
Leph and Surlia lived on the moon of the ancestral planet of all Atrian kind. It had been terraformed early on in their species' space age. After the discovery of faster-than-light travel, Atrians traveled far and wide, meeting alien races and habitable planets. One of those races were the humans. They were nice enough, until a short war broke out, ending in a shaky peace treaty and some deep scars left from the dead on both sides. Human Solar Federation ships still took potshots at Atrian ships, and vice versa, but only in the faraway systems where neutral space began and the arm of the law ended. Borders remained open, but for the most part neither race traveled into the other's domain. Surlia looked at Leph.
Now that we have a ship, we could always, fly over there and find someone else.
Leph scratched his head.
Yeah, about that. You see, it doesn't actually work yet.
You bought a broken ship? Why am I not surprised?
That's why we're here. Zack should arrive shortly, and then we can get her spaceworthy.
I hope you're right. What did you call her, anyway?
The Frontier!
Surlia placed her head in her paws and sighed.
I'm gonna regret this whole thing, aren't I?
Once we do get it running, it'll be a beauty. It's even got particle cannons, see?
Leph pointed to multiple small turrets on the main hull. At first glance, the Frontier looked like some sort of building, but it was, in fact, a ship. It had 3 main sections, comprised mainly of cargo space. These sections were elliptical in shape, round and long, put at different angles. The 2 outer ellipses were thinner and longer, each with antennae protruding from them. And in the center was fatter and larger. It also had antennae. Many portholes allowed for the viewing of space, and the cockpit stuck out the front like a small nub. Gravity generators compensated for the odd angles, and each ellipses could be detached, or more added.
It's a trash heap, Leph. And particle cannons are the cheapest and least effective weapons a ship can have. But I suppose it does have its charms.
Leph's pocket beeped, and he pulled out and checked the screen on his small communication device, called an SCOM, and put it to his ear.
Greetings, Earthling,
he said. It was Zack.
Hi, Leph. I'm kinda in prison. Some old guys accuse me of stealing his wallet, and apparently no one trusts the word of a human these days.
Leph looked at Surlia nervously, who couldn't hear what they were saying.
Just apologize and give the guy back his wallet.
I didn't steal it, Leph. I mean, come on, I'm smarter than that. Look, you need to bail me out of here, otherwise you're not getting that wreck off the ground.
Why is everyone so mean to the Frontier? I can't bail you out, I spent all my money on the ship.
Well, I mean, do something. They won't give me another call.
The SCOM blinked out suddenly. Leph placed it back in the pocket of his flight jacket.
Well, Zack's in prison.
Great.
Leph looked at Sir Leah and grinned.
We've got our first mission. Come on, I think I know how we can get him out.
Leph pushed open the doors of the sports bar. Inside was a large, paper-thin screen which was streaming a live match of low-grav ball. Young and old alike watched and cheered for their team, beers in hand. Leph took a seat at one of the rear booths, and Sir Leah sat across from him.
Zack mentioned some old guy is behind all of this. Ring a bell?
Sir Leah thought a moment.
Not really.
Leph made hand gestures as though it might improve Sir Leah's insight.
Humans, false accusations.
Old Man Jenkins.
Leph nodded.
Man's a menace. Whenever a Terran blows this way, he seems to do all he can to put them in prison. I'm surprised it took him this long to get to Zack.
Aw, don't be too hard on the guy. He lost his child in the war, you know.
Sir Leah flagged down a waiter.
2 coffees, please.
The waiter wrote it down and ran off to serve someone else.
I know, but Zack wasn't a soldier. He was 11 when the war started.
Leph stopped and looked up as if to seek information from the gods.
Wait, no, he was 12. I hate math.
Anyway, why are we here? I know where Old Man Jenkins lives. We can go convince him to recall the accusations.
Jenkins isn't home.
Leph pointed across the bar. An old, gray-furred fox sat cheering along with the other bar patrons. Sir Leah looked at the fox with puzzlement.
Old Man Jenkins likes low-grav ball?
Big fan. I can't understand it. Low grav ball is the most fake sport since the Terrans boxing. And that's not the only thing Old Man Jenkins likes.
The waiter placed 2 cups in front of Leph and Sir Leah and ran off again.
Do I smell blackmail coming?
You know me too well. Last few times I was here, I'm pretty sure Jenkins left with a pretty young lady that certainly wasn't his wife, and they were quite friendly too.
Sir Leah sipped her coffee.
I feel sorry for the old coot, but I can't stand men who cheat. Let's blackmail the gray out of his fur.
Leph nodded. He cupped his hands and shouted.
Hey, Jenkins!
Jenkins looked over and waved. He walked over and sat beside Sir Leah.
Hey, Leph, me old friend. What can I do for you and your lovely companion?
Sir Leah shrank back as far as she could from Old Man Jenkins.
Jenkins, we need to have a talk.
He was slightly drunk, but he knew things were serious.
All right, Leph, but I don't want no trouble.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Jenkins. We have a problem. You got my engineer put in jail. I want him out of jail. See the problem?
Jenkins scoffed.
That damn dirty ape. I tell you, one of these days they'll steal the planets from right under our noses.
Leph folded his arms across his chest.
Now, Jenkins, I'm not interested in your opinions. I want my man out of jail. Tell them you found your wallet.
Jenkins smiled.
Ooh, trying to bribe me now, are ya? Name your price.
Leph smiled back.
I'm not bribing you, I'm blackmailing you. I've seen you with that pretty vixen from out of town.
Ha! You don't have the balls, Leph.
He began to walk away. Leph pulled his ESCOM out of his pocket and selected the Jenkins residence.
Oh. Hello?
A feeble female voice answered. It was Mrs. Jenkins.
Ah, hello, Miss Jenkins, and how are you today?
Jenkins dropped his beer and scrambled to Leph, trying to wrench the ESCOM out of his hands.
Is that Leph? Why, I haven't heard from you since you were a young pup. What have you been doing with yourself?
Leph danced around as he conversed with Mrs. Jenkins.
Nothing much. This and that, you know. In fact, the other day I was at the O'Malley's bar when...
All right.
What was that, Leph? I didn't catch that last part. Oh, I'm going a little deaf in my old age.
It was nothing, Miss Jenkins. Just calling to say hi. Have a lovely day now.
Leph hung up and smirked at Jenkins.
Well, it seems you found your wallet, Jenkins.
Jenkins gritted his teeth and shot Leph a dirty look.
Yes, it's right here in my pocket.
Leph called the police department's non-emergency line and passed the ESCOM to Jenkins. After a brief exchange, he hung up.
Leph, if you breathe a word of this to anybody, I'll kick your ass into orbit.
Jenkins threw the ESCOM onto the ground, smashing it. He walked away and joined the revelers as though nothing had happened. Sir Leah looked down at the smashed device.
That was kind of fun.
Leph crouched and gathered up the pieces.
My precious ESCOM. That thing cost me a fortune!
He looked up at Celia.
But it was worth it. I feel like a pirate.
She finished her coffee.
That's not a good thing.
The jailhouse was small. The community was really only there because of the spaceport, and everything else was for the residents who worked there, and visiting captains and crew on shore leave. The crime rate was very low in Citrus Creek, the worst crime being the occasional assault. Leph and Celia walked up to the front desk and got the attention of the receptionist. She spoke in a voice heavy with vocal fry.
Oh, hello, Leph. Back again, I see. What is it this time?
Oh, we're just waiting for Zack. He should be released soon, right?
She batted her eyelids at him.
Oh, he'll be out shortly. In the meantime, we can have a nice chat.
Leph smiled and leaned on the table.
Oh? What about?
I'm sure we'll think of something.
Celia pulled Leph by the jacket out the door and onto a bench.
Hey, what was that for?
Celia rolled her eyes.
We're leaving for a planet 500 light years away, and we need to do it by tomorrow. We can't waste time flirting.
Leph gave his best puppy dog eyes.
But sex, though.
No.
Okay.
They sat watching the blue-green sky as small space rocks periodically burned up in the atmosphere, creating a constant light show.
I'm gonna miss this place.
Leph sighed and leaned back.
Remember when we would go outside the gravity generator's range and jump off cliffs when we were kids? Our parents would get so mad.
Celia looked over at him.
As I recall, you did all the jumping, and somehow I got all the blame.
Leph waved his paw dismissively.
Whatever. Remember Bobby?
Ugh, God, you know he still calls me sometimes, right?
Leph looked surprised.
Oh? Told you shouldn't have let him on like that.
I feel sorry for the guy. He was so sweet. We can come back someday.
I don't know about you, but I want to keep doing things in space. Be a freighter captain or something.
Celia looked up into the sky. A particularly large rock exploded into a starburst of sparkling dust.
It would be a boring place without you around.
You could come with me.
Celia smiled.
I might take you up on that offer.
Zack strolled out of the police office, breaking the mood.
Hey, Leph. And Celia. I'm assuming you guys got me out of there. Thanks.
He looked around.
Am I interrupting something? It's kinda hard to read your faces, being aliens and all.
Zack was a short man. He was thin with a slightly squat face, with short hair and a connected beard mustache. He spoke perfect Atrian. His brown eyes were shifty, and he barely made eye contact with people. Leph stood.
Zack, you are an alien to the people here and on Atria. You need to be more careful.
Zack threw up his hands.
Okay. Now we can go and see the ship, right? I've always wanted to have a look round at an old H model.
Celia stood up as well.
Yes, let's go. Just no blowing things up this time.
They began to walk to the spaceport.
So, Zack, what have you been up to since we saw you in Lace?
My parents paid off the damages. I was meaning to ask you, why did you two move all the way to Lace for 1 year, then leave?
Celia looked at Leph knowingly.
Family matters.
Zack looked at them both.
You Atrians are weird. Even if I have lived here for most of my life.
Speaking of which, will you go back to Terra after this is done?
Zack shrugged.
I don't know. They don't need many engineers well versed in Atrian technology back on Earth. Maybe I'll settle with the colonists. Buy myself a nice cottage with the money you'll pay me.
That is, if the ship can be fixed like you said.
Leph looked at Zack, trying to gauge his reaction.
Don't worry, Leph. The problem you described can be fixed with some slight tinkering. Probably.
If you can't, you're buying the Frontier from me.
They strolled past the cleaner, newer, more streamlined ships parked at the space dock until they reached their decrepit ship. Leph kicked the landing gear of the nearest ship.
Pfft. They're just compensating for something.
When Zack saw the ship, his eyes lit up.
Huh. It's like seeing a real live dinosaur. I can't wait to dig around in the bowels of this thing.
He ran up the ramp and into the ship. Leph scratched his head.
What's a dinosaur?
Hell if I know.
Leph and Celia followed Zack into the ship. Leph led Celia on the grand tour.
First, the cockpit.
Right on the front end of the ship was a large room. Inside were 2 chairs with matching consoles, each console having a tiny monitor, a flight wheel with 360-degree turning ability, and several control switches.
Now, this ship doesn't have a huge fancy computer, Just one of those old models that does all the little things like calculate jump trajectory and notifies you when there is an unidentified object inbound. You have to fly the ship manually at sublight speeds.
Celia looked around. She pointed to a large machine with a half-cylinder embedded in its front.
This is pretty cool, Leph. What does it do?
Oh, that's the coffee maker. Last captain had it put in, I think.
A coffee maker?
Leph pressed the button, and a cup rose from the bottom of the cylinder, liquid being deposited into it. He took a sip.
It tastes like shit, but it's convenient.
Celia rolled her eyes and walked out of the cockpit doorway. Leph ran after her.
Alright, moving on. Each door along this hallway leads to cargo bays. Nothing in there yet. A couple have already been converted into living quarters for the colonists. Don't worry, the crew have private quarters.
At the end of the hallway there was a door. Leph pressed a button and led Celia through it.
To your right are the crew quarters. Down those stairs is the engine room, which I forgot to remind you. Don't ever go down there while the drives are engaged. You will be slowly cooked from the inside. It's not very pleasant.
Well, that sounds like an oversight. What if the engines overload mid-jump and we have to shut them down manually?
You're screwed, I guess. These things weren't built for safety, you know. Also, there is a small conference room there to the left. We're just going to end up using it as a dinner table, though.
Celia looked disappointed.
That's it? I mean, I know it's a junker, but I expected more bells and whistles.
You forgot the coffee machine.
Before Celia had time to be annoyed, there was a loud hum as systems came online throughout the ship. Lights flickered as Zack emerged from the engine room, wiping some sort of lubricant from his hands.
I was right. All that was wrong was the main coolant pipe for the engines had fallen off. Every time someone tried to bring them online, a failsafe would trip and trigger a full shutdown. And of course, since the thing doesn't have a self-diagnostic system, no one bothered to look into it. They just sold it as scrap. It works fine now, but it'll need a new coolant pipe. One that's not near corroded, though. It'll work fine for a few light years, though.
Leph pumped his paw in the air.
Ha! Yes! Things are coming up, Leph! I told you this plan would work!
Celia punched him.
It's just about dinner time. Let's stop gloating and go eat.
Zack tossed aside the rag and headed for the doorway.
There was this really nice-looking place on the outside of town. Do you guys know it?
Leph and Celia followed him.
Yeah, me and Celia would eat lunch there when we went to school. As I recall, it wasn't all that good.
Well, it serves some of the only Atrian food I can metabolize.
Of course, sometimes I forget you're an alien.
Sometimes it feels like you're the only one.
Celia suddenly found something very interesting to look at on the floor as Zack made a stop in the cockpit to shut off the engines. Leph, Zack, and Celia sat in a booth at the Quell family restaurant and looked at the menus. Zack studied the various food items.
I've always wanted to try these strange foods.
Leph closed his menu.
Must have been hard growing up on a strange moon among strange creatures.
I didn't grow up in a strange place. My parents made sure I was as human as them and their friends. Man, the culture shock was pretty bad when I went to college for ship engineering. Especially the urinals. Those things are weird.
Leph shifted uncomfortably.
Our anatomy is different.
I'll say. I remember the night I lost my...
Okay, Zack, not the best topic before we eat.
Zack shrugged.
Whatever. You guys are more squeamish than my parents.
A lupine waiter walked up to the table.
Can I take your order?
Zack put down his menu.
Yes. I'll have the Laxar steak. No fries.
I'll have the soup of the day.
And I'll have the pixie wing platter. And a round of waters, please.
The waiter selected the items on his handheld pad and a receipt popped out.
3,500 credits, please.
Zack pulled out his wallet before Leph could.
I'll pay.
He pulled out some bills and handed them to the waiter. The waiter counted them and put all but one into a small box. He split the last bill into two pieces, approximately one 1/4 piece and one 3/4 piece. He handed the 3/4 piece back to Zack.
Your meal will be out shortly. I'll bring your water in a second.
Zack smiled.
Thanks.
He looked at the money in his hand.
I still can't get over how cool your money is. On Earth, people use something called change, but here you guys actually split bills.
I think we should use change. Coins are so cool.
Celia said as she dug around her pocket.
I even have a genuine American coin.
Celia struggled to pronounce the human word. She held up the coin as Leph and Zack stared at it in amazement. The waiter came by and dropped off the water. Zack drank some.
You know, from stories my parents used to tell me, people on Earth actually pay for their meals after they eat them.
Oh, that's not true. It's just a myth. What would stop less reputable people just eating and running off?
It's tradition.
They continued to converse, and soon the food arrived. The waiter placed a large plate of insect wings in front of Leph, who licked his lips and rubbed his paws together in anticipation.
Ooh, these look delicious. Thank you.
Zack looked at Leph's food.
That looks positively disgusting.
Leph popped one of the fried wings into his mouth. It crunched like a potato chip.
What? Your parents didn't let you try the insects?
Celia snagged one of Leph's wings. Zack looked at his steak.
Well, this is basically all I ate in college. My parents said I shouldn't risk anything else. Tastes like chicken.
Early the next morning, as one of the two tiny suns rose slowly into the sky, Leph and Celia once again stood before the ship. Except this time, a line of people moved a wide variety of objects up the loading ramp and into the Frontier's cargo bays. Leph swept his arm across the scene.
See that? We're helping create a new home for all these people and getting paid to do it.
Celia watched as grizzled-looking farmers herded Laxar up the ramp. The Laxar made deep, guttural noises as they scraped their 6 legs against the ramp, unwilling to go up. The farmers managed to get them in without much fuss, however. 2 of the colonists approached Leph and Celia. One waved.
Leph! I didn't think you'd actually do it, you dog.
I keep my word, Rackham. But where are my manners? This is Celia, my second in command. Celia, this is old Jackhammer Rackham, the mayor of these colonists and a personal friend of mine.
Rackham shook Celia's hand. He was a large and strong husky, and he had a jovial air about him.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am. This is my wife, Dee.
He gestured to the small woman beside him, also a husky, who waved sheepishly. Leph waved back.
Nice to see you again, Dee. I trust the loading is going well? No problems?
Ha ha ha! Oh, no problems at all, Leph. There's plenty of room like you said, and looks like it won't get too crowded in there.
Leph nodded.
Good to hear.
So, where are you from?
Oh, well, we come from the other side of the moon, but it's gotten too expensive to farm there, so I took a colonization course at the agricultural college, and, well, here we are.
How many more waves of colonists will there be?
They recommend 6. Don't know how many will come, but even if no one comes, we'll be fine.
Leph walked towards the ship.
Looks like they're finishing up. We'd better get going.
Leph stood on a crate in the cargo bay while 60 colonists milled around in front of him. He held up his arms and called for silence.
Hello!
The din died down and everyone looked at him. The colonists wore normal civilian clothes and were a mix of foxes, wolves, and other canines. It was standard procedure that all colonists had to be compatible to mate with each other, otherwise the colony would die out in short order.
My name is Leph, and I am the captain of this ship. Some ground rules. The cockpit and engine rooms are off limits unless you get permission from me, the first officer, or the engineer. No fights. Other than that, we have a database with books and movies, plenty of food, all supplied by the Atrian government. We'll be departing at once, so make sure you didn't forget anything.
He jumped off the crate as the colonists began chattering excitedly. Leph weaved through the colonists and made his way to the cockpit. Celia was already there.
Ground control just gave us clearance to lift off.
Leph sat in the pilot's seat and Celia sat in the co-pilot's seat. He hit the intercom button on his console.
Zack, bring the engines online. We're taking off.
The engines hummed and shuddered. Leph gripped the wheel.
Time for all that flight school to pay off.
He pulled up on the wheel and the Frontier shot up into the air. Inside, the shock was barely felt as Leph piloted the ship out of the moon's atmosphere. He switched on his monitor and set it to rear view.
There goes the moon. Wonder if we'll ever see it again.
Celia also turned on her monitor.
Can't say, Leph.
She looked at him and smiled.
I can't believe we actually did it.
Me neither, Celia. Me neither.